small talk before class, which is why you weren't. It was a very big discussion here. We almost started a food fight over it. But we decided to wait until 7 and then start the class. All right, so very good. So here we are. Welcome to the second session of the second semester of ROSH-ESTHER, which for the newcomers from LA, I would say ROSH-ESTHER is like Rochester, but it's also Hebrew for the head of Esther. And what does that mean is a big riddle. We're still trying to figure it out. Like why would we call our class that? We don't know. It's mystical. By the end of a few semesters, we might start to understand it. Maybe on our special lecture before Purim, we'll get some understandings about. And actually, some of it though, we'll get answers to hopefully today or next week, because it has actually to do with what we're learning.
It means beauty, because wasn't her head so beautiful that it saved the Jewish people?
Well, there you go. You see the beauty of the Jewish people, and it can be external or internal beauty or both, right? So that I did not think about, but hey, we're collecting all the correct answers. So thank you. Right, the beauty of Esther. Yeah, there you go. Wonderful. So let us start with a few things to build this session. The first is that I'm inviting everyone to take one of those. If you want to maybe hand them to one another. We are trying to collect some money for the. I will repeat what I said last week. That we have, apparently there are 115 Holocaust survivors left in the Rochester area, and on March 30th we will be writing them happy Passover notes, and either I didn't get the final answer if we're actually making it ourselves or if we're just sponsoring it, but these thank you notes will be collected to some baskets that they will receive for Passover, and we would like to sponsor these baskets. So if you want to give it's something like my micro philanthropy experiment for this semester, is people who study with us, if they want to show their appreciation in any way and kind of like channel some energy from the study towards a good cause. We don't have that many years for Holocaust survivors to remain around. So, if you want to, like, whatever it is you want to help, you can scan this, and that goes to a designated fund that will go to that eventually. Yeah.
And the one thing the Jewish Federation does is people come and pick them up for their doctor's appointments, bring them to the appointment, and wait in the waiting room while they're getting doctored.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Take them to get their medicine and take them take them and not home yet.
Right. Good. So that's definitely an additional way to help those people, and feel free to chip in whatever way you see fit, or one or both. Okay. The other thing is that I would like to start with a little chant and meditation. Last week, it felt like yesterday. Long week, but short in some ways. A lot happened, right? So another thing is that so we'll start with a song and a small meditation, and then continue with our studies. And I'll just say that with the study today, I'd also like to kind of add my prayers. I just heard the news from Israel about hopefully a hostage deal and a ceasefire, and that's, I hope, is promising and will bring some relief to many people who are suffering, whether they're Israelis or Palestinians or whoever else is involved there. So I just like to add express my I don't want to say happiness, because I'll see it when it happens, because we've seen, but the fact that they're even talking about that, it seems serious, is gives us a little bit of hope. So may we soon see good news in that area of the world that really deserves some more quiet, I think, after such a long, more than a year of terrible things. So may that be the beginning of good news for us. Amen. To all who are involved. So Yeah, so here's a guitar. And let me see if we can find the words of the song that we're going to be singing from out of Psalms. So I'll share the screen here, just a moment. I'm sharing the screen, but I'll stop sharing and then we'll share the right screen, hopefully. Let me see. Right, it's basically this one. So we don't have transliteration, so either you can read the Hebrew or you can just kind of listen to the song and be happy. People on Zoom, can you see the shared screen?
Yes.
Yes.
That makes me very happy because unlike last week when each one of us saw a different screen, we all can see allegedly, apparently, the same screen, which is exciting. So this is not my composition. It's a very popular composition, very well known in Israel. Yeah, so it's the Song of the Ascent. It's this basic thing where you look into the mountains and ask, where will my help come from? And say, oh, my help comes from God, the creator of all that. Remember? So let's sing it, and then we'll learn more. Sheila, oh, it's too low. Come on, let's do this. Let's see. Sheila ma'alo, אשא עיניי אל ההרים, מאין יבוא עזרי, עזרי מעם אדוני, עושה שמיים וארץ, אל יתן למוט רגליך, אל ינום שומרך, הנה לא ינום ולא יישן שומר ישראל, אדוני שומרך, אדוני צילך, על יד ימינך, יומם השמש לא יככה, וירח בלילה, אדוני ישמורך מכל רע, ישמור את נפשך, אדוני ישמור צאתך ובואך, מעתה ועד עולם, מעתה ועד עולם. שיר למעלות, אשא עיניי אל ההרים, מאין יבוא עזרי, עזרי מעם אדוני, עושה שמיים וארץ, אל יתן למוט רגליך, אל ינום שומרך, הנה לא ינום ולא יישן שומר ישראל, אדוני שומרך, אדוני צילך, על יד ימינך, יומם השמש לא יככה, וירח בלילה, אדוני ישמורך מכל רע, ישמור את נפשך, אדוני ישמור צאתך ובואך, מעתה ועד עולם, מעתה ועד עולם. Okay, so it's standing. It's standing. So I'm inviting us now to our short meditation. So we can make sure that we are conscious of the way that we're sitting, whether we're here or if we're at home, and we can just, if it helps us to kind of tune our consciousness inwards, we're invited to close our eyes, although it's not something that we must do in any way. Bless you. And let us make sure that we're conscious of the way that we're sitting. Hopefully our feet are touching the ground in some sort of way. And we can rest on Mother Earth and enjoy the gravity that connects us to it. And we're sitting probably in a chair if we're here, or at home if we're on a sofa or somewhere else. Just make sure that you notice the different parts of your body that are resting upon something, if it's your thighs, if it's your back, whatever it is. And notice these points of contact. And notice that at the same time that we are resting, that gravity is pulling us towards the ground, there's another force that's allowing us to kind of resist gravity, and we are also able to hold our bodies hopefully kind of upright and be as centered as we can. So if we're leaning in one direction, let's make sure that our spine and our torso is kind of straight as much as possible. So we can imagine our head being pulled up towards the heavens. You don't have to imagine it, it's actually happening. We notice our breath. And since it's been a long day to some of us, for some of us, we can kind of use every exhale to kind of release any kind of tension or conflict or difficult thing that happened to us throughout the day. Every inhale, we can kind of bring calmness and tranquility. And good aspirations for the evening that has come and for the day that's going to come tomorrow. So just use your breath to kind of release and get what's not necessary and get filled with good things. And as we do all this, we're invited to just be conscious of the different sensations, emotions, and thoughts that come and go as we sit and are just simply noticing who we are in this very moment. Because those things have a tendency to appear from somewhere and become present and then kind of go somewhere, go away. So try to just notice whatever comes in the most non-judgmental or prejudiced way, just whatever it is, wherever we are in this moment, just notice it. And if the mind wanders somewhere and it becomes kind of taken by its own processes, a good anchor to come back to is always the breath, because it's a constant. We're always breathing, no matter what. And from this place that is the most centered and conscious and tranquil and aware that we can be in this very moment, we're going to say the Shema together. If you know it, join us. If not, just know that it's a prayer about oneness of all things. We're going to say each word in one breath, and then the last word, Echad, we're going to say, take a long breath and just say it together until we kind of run out of breath. Shema Israel Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. From this silence, from this peaceful place, let us say the blessing for studying the Torah together. May this session be beneficial to all of us, to all our loved ones and people that we are thinking about, praying for, whether near or far. Let us say together, Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam Asher Kideshanu B'mitzvotav V'tzivanu La'asok B'divrei Torah. And we're invited to slowly open our eyes if you haven't done so already, and gently come out of the meditation space, which is kind of intimate and personal. And it's almost strange to do it in a group with a group of people. But it also helps in a way, because together we, how do you say, united we stand? No, together we fall. No, something like that. There's a saying. There is a saying about.
Sounds good.
Yeah, it sounds good, right?
Divided we fall.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. United we stand, divided we fall. Thank you. Right. So sometimes it helps to be within a group of people who are doing something, because it helps us to kind of be more present, right? So we started getting into this Kabbalistic, Jewish Kabbalistic Zen riddle last week, and basically we covered. I didn't even get to Kabbalah last week. We kind of got to the Jewish texts, both in the Bible and in Midrash, in the rabbinic Midrash, that are the kind of like the components from which Kabbalah can begin, right? Because Kabbalah is not an independent entity from Judaism at large. It's true that people who aren't Jewish can study it too, just like I can go to a yoga class. The yoga was invented in India by some Hindus, right? And it's connected to Hinduism, but you can study yoga if you want, and you don't have to be necessarily a Buddhist or a Hindu to do that. And similarly, other things. Once I attended a workshop of how to become a whirling dervish, which I just took a very beginner's class. I did not become a whirling dervish, but I did benefit from the class. And even though Sufism comes from Islam, one doesn't necessarily have to be a Muslim to enjoy the spiritual richness of Sufism, right? So likewise, you don't have to be Jewish necessarily to study Kabbalah. Yet, if you know Jewish texts, if you know Hebrew, if you're well versed in the Bible, if you understand the culture around it, it's easier or more beneficial even, because it just connects you more to the practice, right? So that's kind of how it is. So we started by right. We started this all these exciting animations. That right. We started by reading Genesis chapter 28, which is the famous story about Jacob, who kind of ran away from home and was a young man who had nothing and was in the field. And it was getting dark and he was afraid. He was all alone, and then he fell asleep and he had the famous dream about the Jacob's ladder. So I was giving this present, a gift by you, which I'm not very good at it. I was told that this game is called Jacob's Ladder also. I'm really not very good at it. Somebody else I'm going to have to read the instructions if you want to show us how it's done. Right? Show and tell. He brought this for show and tell in the Kabbalah class. See, he's a pro. Apparently, this goes on forever and ever. This is Jacob's Ladder, guys, and it's actually interesting. It's actually interesting that it's colorful and all the. Yeah, so we have an optical illusion. We have all the colors of the rainbow. This is all relevant to different interpretations of what is Jacob's Ladder in Kabbalah. But so the first level of this journey, of this ongoing Zen riddle, right? The Buddhists are very short Zen riddles. We have Zen riddles that go on and on and on. They're very long. So one of them is that the first layer is that we're thinking about Jacob, who had this amazing dream. In the dream, something opened to him. He was in the field and he was a young man and he had nothing and he was messed up. And then after the dream, when he woke up the next day, he was still a mess. But he had something that happened to him. He had a ladder connect between heaven and earth. Something between the human and the divine. They were angels, and he knew that he has that connection no matter what. And then he continued in his life. His life was a mess almost until the day he died. Yet, all right, it's not about not having problems anymore or not having anything resolved. But he did have another kind of axis, right? Another level of meaning and existence that opened for him, which is a kind of a connection with the divine. And that would be interesting to the Kabbalists because, hey, they want that too, right? Kabbalists are not theoreticians. They're not just intellectuals learning for the pleasure of learning ancient texts, even though that's very nice too. And if somebody's here just for that, that's good. That's fine. But the Kabbalists themselves, they would say, oh, Jacob had it. We want it too. This is not a game. This is not maybe it's a sacred game, right? The sacred grade of living. We also want, if we're the descendants of Jacob, Israel, right? Israel is Jacob. If we're the descendants of Israel, hey, we want access to that ladder as well. What is the ladder? What is the ladder? Right? So that's what they would investigate. What happened the night before? Why did it happen to Jacob, particularly in that moment, and not like 2 days ago, or what didn't happen to his neighbor, or to his uncle, or to somebody else, right? There must be a reason for that. And then we saw the Midrash, right? Which, remember Rabbi Nachman, who said, where was that? Rabbi Nachman, who said, this is all kind of going back to last week. He said, actually, this song that we just sang, a song of the ascent, Psalm 122, this song was sung by Jacob when he was all alone before he had the dream. We said, yeah, but according to the tradition, King David wrote Psalms. That was many years later. Said the Kabbalists and the people never bothered themselves with historical accuracy. Like if you want historical accuracy, go to like U of R, to the history department, or to right. This is a spirituality here. Don't bother us with the fact that this is Jacob. This was written by Jacob. Why? Because they wanted to portray to a kind of a place, a psychological space in which Jacob was prior to the dream. And they said, Shir la Ma'alot, a song of the ascents, I will lift up mine eyes unto the mountains. From whence shall my help come? Esa'inai el harim. Harim is mountains in Hebrew. Harim. Right? And then because harim and horim, which means parents in Hebrew, sound the same, and also is written the same, by the way, without the vowels. Harim, horim. Right? So mountains is the external world, the physical world around me. Oh, how can the external world help me? Right? Can't help me. I'm alone here. I'm all alone. It's scary. It's a nighttime. The mountains are not helping me. Right? And then he looks inwards to his horim, to his parents. Mom, Dad, help me. To his psyche, right? That the psychologist in the room will tell us has a lot to do with horim, with parents. They can't help him. He's all alone. He's alone. He has nothing, right? And Rabbi Nachman explained to us that it's juxtaposed to the slave Eliezer, who went the same route from the land of Israel to Haran, which is somewhere in Syria or Iraq or whatever it is, right? And he walks there in the Middle East back and forth, right? This family has been traveling. The slave had all these camels and all this gold and all these belongings. He did not have the ladder appear to him because he had all those things. And Jacob had ayin. What is ayin? Nothing. And when he realized that he had nothing, that is what allowed him to open up to the ladder. Right? So the ladder has to do, this is pre-Kabbalah. This is just classical Jewish interpretation.
Why do you say that he was lost?
Well, he wasn't lost. He knew where he was going, but I'm just saying he was lost in the wilderness, figuratively speaking. He was kind of lost. He didn't have a place in life.
What was the story when he left his parents' home?
He stole the how do you say the firstborn right, the birthright. He stole the birthright from his brother. He cheated his father. His mother was the manipulative one behind it all the time, but nonetheless he had to leave her too. He couldn't go home because he thought that his brother would kill him. It wasn't true, by the way. His brother was a very angry guy, but also a very forgiving guy. Right? If you remember, Dr. Garaway said something about that. But that's what he thought at the time, that his brother was going to kill him. And he had
the chronology, right? So
right.
That's when he left. That's the dream of the ladders happened.
Yeah. So that point, so the tradition, the Midrash, Rabbi Nachman said that is why, because he was at that point when he had not yet met his wives, by the way, to be, not wives to be. He had not yet made his fame and fortune in a foreign land. He was in between, in this liminal place. Right, between things, and that's why I said lost, because he was not established in any way and had nothing. And basically that nothingness meant a lot to the ancient. They understood that he kind of started to develop spiritually because he realized that he had nothing. And just to understand how it's, like, once again, in the Hebrew, where does my help come from? Whence? What does it say? From whence shall my help come? Kind of antiquated English. Me'ayin yavo ezri. Right? Me'ayin yavo ezri. And the word ayin in Hebrew means whence from. Where from? Me'ayin. But it also means from nothing. Ayin is nothingness. So that's kind of like their creative interpretation, where the question becomes the answer. And the problem becomes a solution. Where about, like realizing that his help is not going to come from anything but his own self, whether external or internal, material or spiritual, psychological. Coming to terms with that and saying, oh, whatever, I'm just going to go to sleep in the field. So he takes some rocks and he makes a pillow out of them, and he sleeps there, and then he has that dream. It's basically the surrender to the fact that he has nothing, and maybe that he is nothing in that moment, that allows for the other channel of reality kind of to open up for him. And then we noticed, and this is only backtracing, so this was the Midrash, remember, that we learned last week, Rabbi Nachman. So we already have 3 texts. That's why it's a complicated tradition. We have Genesis, the story of Jacob. We have the Song of the Ascent, which we sang from Psalms. That's biblical stuff, right? Genesis and Psalm. Then we have the Midrash, the classical Midrash of Bereshit Rabbah, Rabbi Nachman, which about 2,000 years ago realized that the fact that Jacob had nothing is the key to understanding, in his opinion, Jacob's ladder. Right? So this is kind of like a summary of last week, minus the technical problem with the Zoom that we had, which hopefully we're not having today again. Right, and then we kind of got to this one, which was the contemporary Israeli band. It's not that it's from the 90s, all right, or early 2000s. It's already not that contemporary, but relatively to Jacob and all those guys, it's very contemporary, right? So this contemporary band called Shotei HaNevuah, the Fools of Prophecy, who kind of made this song, which we listened to which we don't have to maybe listen to again, Ein Ani. Remember that song? You want to hear it again? No. We heard it last week. All right? Ein Ani. That basically not only is the word that ein is nothing, okay? Ein Ani. Remember how you sang? Ein Ani, Ein Ani, Ein Ani, Ein Ani, Ein Ani, Ein Ani. That's the chorus. Why? Because ein is nothingness, nothing. And ani in Hebrew is I. Anybody knows how we say I in Arabic? Anna. Yeah. Ani, the same word. Right? Anna. Ani is a similar language. Hebrew and Arabic, speaking of the Middle East, are sister languages like Spanish and Italian. Okay, so many words, like half the words, are either the same or very similar. So Anna, Ani, same thing. So Ani, Aleph, Nun, Yud, right? And Ayin are the same. It's actually the same three letters. So that was very interesting to those people, because they say, hey, Ani, I, and nothingness are the same letters. Is there a mysterious connection between the two? All right, so this is kind of like where we laid off last week.
There's the
Sheket, be silent. If you know Arabic, uskut, it's the same word, same language, almost, right? So Ayin, nothing, okay, or nothingness, if you wish. This is courtesy of Hannah from the office. She's made some animation for us. And Ani. All right. And if you know Hebrew, you know that why is the same word. So you recognize the Aleph and the Yud in the middle. And you see, and then the Nun, as you may know, appears either as a straight line if it's at the end of the word, and or as this shaped if it's in the middle of the word. In Arabic, two letters change according to where they are in the word. So that's how it is. So it's basically the same three letters, only that one of them changes its graphics in the process, and then they change the order. But it's the same three letters, which in a Kabbalistic way of thinking, that means that we can find a connection, a correlation between these two words, not just randomly, because we're trying to make a point. And the point is that the Ani, the I, is being formed out of nothing. The I, the self, is being formed out of nothing. As someone who's part of my profession, as you know, is to like officiate funerals and to be with people, towards at the end of life and thereafter. And last week there was a lot of death going on in our congregation. I was two funerals and one person passing away. So I was very close to death last week and the weeks prior. And, so some of you also have experienced loss very recently. And then, so basically we know that the self not only comes from nothing, but also becomes nothing, right? So there's, like, if you think about like our lives, each and every one of us, regardless of how old we are, it doesn't matter, because like in compared like our life, our years that we're on this planet, in comparison to eternity, how much of eternity is the real life, that the Ani exists? Our own particular Ani is actually very short. It's not even an eye blink, right? So Ani, most of the time, well, as far as we're concerned, there is nothing. Well, there's a lot of other things, just not we, right? The self sees itself as very real and eternal, and right. But in fact, that thing that is us is kind of like there's more nothingness than I in it. See what I mean? Kind of like, statistically speaking, at least. So that is kind of like where we left off, and that is where the text of the Zohar of Kabbalah actually begins. Right until now, we were kind of like making introductions. Just a second before we turn to our primary text. Primary text. These are all the introductions. Yeah. So before we turn to this text, which is what we came here to do, any comments or questions so far? Let's start with the room and then see if there's any questions on Zoom. Yeah. Anyone?
Questions about what? We can start here.
Well, I know exactly what's to ask, right? Anyone? No questions? Comments? Go ahead.
If we start from nothing and end from nothing, is there an afterlife?
Is there an afterlife? Wait a second. Let me Google that question. Is there an... I'm actually... What does he mean by afterlife? Right. So, great question. Great question, right? Because some might say, hey, maybe our body dies, but the soul is eternal. Right? That's a great question to which we're not going to get a straight answer right now because, hey, who knows? Although some of the Kabbalists thought that they knew. But that's a great question. Okay? Because what I was referring to was our life in this body. Is there possibly an eternal aspect to our soul? Possibly, yes, especially if you're a Neoplatonist or a Kabbalist or a Sufi or a lot of other things. You might think that the answer might be yes. But is that thing us, right? Is there like, a Moishi or a Yusuf or a Charlie or a, or a Josh or, what I mean, in the afterlife? Right? Or is it something that we don't know, right? But
I'll answer that question for you.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
No, there's no afterlife.
Right. So he knows. Right. So I wouldn't be that decisive. Again, if you're a neo-Aristotelian, you would tend to think that like you. So you probably are a neo-Aristotelian. And if you're a Neoplatonist, you would tend to think that the soul can exist without a body. Which used to seem very weird, but nowadays, with if someone's Facebook page or Instagram page, or if the AI is able to kind of figure out someone's brain to a degree that like nobody else can tell that they're not alive, right? So we used to think that those things are kind of wacko and antiquated, and look down upon those weird ideas from the Middle Ages and antiquity that the soul can exist without a body. But hey, we're getting already to places where technology is so advanced and saying, hey, can you just cut and paste my file to like a computer and then I'll live forever? Right? Or can you, in other words, it's kind of right? So yeah. So is there an afterlife? Great question. I don't know, but we can think about different.
So you're asking if the soul can be digitized?
I'm not asking that. I'm just giving this as I'm not really asking that. It's kind of a segue, anyways. But I'm saying that this tradition already, we haven't even read a word from the Zohar. We're just in the introductions, and we kind of it makes us kind of question the boundaries of the self and what we think is so determined as me, my existence. I'll speak for myself. I tend to have kind of very fixated notions about me, myself, my role in life, who I am, my home, my bank account, my job, my family, my identity, all sorts of things that tend to be, this is my nationality, this is my religion, this is my gender, this is my job description, I wake up in the morning, I tend to always come to the same place and then go back to the same house. It's pretty boring, it's pretty, I tend to have very fixated ideas about reality, and these kind of traditions are kind of radical in the way that they help us to kind of like question that a little bit, right? Is the self really such a determined and fixed thing, and how does that relate to nothingness? Yeah, go ahead.
I read something yesterday that I thought of this class, and I thought I'd share it.
It says, while the external world is real, it is not the ultimate reality. It goes on to say other things, but then it says, it is not about detachment or denial, but about shifting our identification from the temporary to the eternal.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh.
Who? May we ask who wrote that?
So this was in a book. I got it from some yoga teachers who shared it. It was from the book of Form and Emptiness.
Mm-hmm.
So it's about the Shiva Tantra and Shiva and Shakti.
Yeah.
So it was just really interesting. I'm like, oh my God, everything is all the same. I'm reading this stuff and stuff and learning stuff. I found it.
Yes. So thank you. Evidently, Jews have dealt with these questions, but not only Jews, right? And we see when we start to study Kabbalah, we will meet many. We will see many things. Oh, but yoga teachers speak about it, and Sufism speak about it, and Christian mysticism talks about it, and oh my God, right? Because what can you do? People live and they have similar experiences. It's like you say, oh, Jews eat, but also Christians eat, and Muslim. Well, how amazing! They all eat food. Why? Because we're human, right? So we will share many experiences, whether food or more sublime things, right? So and sometimes it could be because people have met in times of antiquity and shared ideas. We're not the only generations that travel. But also, I can also see why people who've never met and cultures who've never met would arrive at similar conclusions just because they share the same human experience, right? So it's not always, oh, first was in Judaism and then it went to Christianity and we were here first. No, the Buddhists were here first. And it's not about that because that's not that interesting, right? Like who invented it. It's who we are and we have a kind of a shared experience. Can we continue? You want to say something?
Well, I was just thinking about at the end of our first part of ROSH-ESTHER, when we lit the candles, and there was this glow that was beyond the body of the candle.
Mm-hmm.
So it just reminded me of sort of the consciousness.
Right.
The
Thank you. I thought of that too. As I was talking. I remember that because then when you went in this very room, when we dimmed the lights and we meditated upon a burning candle, which is an old Kabbalistic practice, we noticed that the candle has an aura, right? And that actually you can't really tell where the candle ends and where the other candle begins. And that was a very good demonstration of, I think that myself, my I is such a determined, this is me, this is my boundary, but actually, where do I start and my child ends? Where do I start and my parent, wife, significant other, my neighbor, right? We tend to think of ourselves as such individual islands, but in fact, it's not all that. My genetics. Who are the people who form this genetics, right? The boundaries are not so clear cut as we sometimes think that they are. We're more codependent, interdependent as we think, right? All right. So therefore, now we're ready to kind of go into the Zohar. We're going to be reading an English translation of a text that originally is in Aramaic, is at least 800 years old, maybe more, possibly more, because what we're reading now comes from a layer, a strata of the Zohar literature that is sometimes thought of being a little more ancient. So maybe it's 900 years old, maybe 1,000 years old, probably not 1,000. Okay, probably written, let's say, in Spain in the early 13th century, although we don't know for sure. Okay, the Kabbalists who wrote the Zohar, once again, chose to remain anonymous. They wrote under pseudonyms, possibly because they were cautious because their teachings were radical, and they said, "Oh, I better not let my congregants know that I'm radical, or that maybe my Christian or Muslim neighbors don't like everything that I say, or maybe it's the other Jews who are giving me trouble. Or it's better to just pretend it was Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai who wrote it, right? Or maybe I would like to think because they were actually very modest, and they just said, you know what, I'm channeling this knowledge. It's not me. I'd rather leave it, like it doesn't matter that I'm Moishe from whatever, Cordova in Spain. It doesn't matter. I'll just write it and let someone else right? Right. Okay. And once again, the Zohar is an interpretation on the Bible. So they go verse by verse and they teach their secrets through interpreting the Bible, which is why this verse, this text will begin with a quotation from the Bible and will then go on and giving their mystical interpretation. And one component of the repetition that we forgot is that we spoke about Be'er Sheva and Haran, remember? So Jacob came out of Be'er Sheva, which is a town in southern Israel, in the Negev, okay? And he went to Haran, which is someplace in probably Iraq of today. So it's a physical, he went from here to here, okay? But Be'er Sheva means the well of abundance. It also means the well of seven. Sheva, but also Sova, the well of abundance. He went from a place of abundance to a place of Haran. Haran means anguish, conflict, lack. So we kind of spoke about the journey of Jacob, not just as a historical, geographical one, but of switching between different states of being. Having much, having nothing. Having plenty, feeling lack. Right? Oh, I have abundance, I have plenty. Oh, I don't have anything. I have anguish, I have conflict in my life, etc. Right? So it could also be an emotional or a spiritual journey, an existential journey that each and every one of us, each and every human being can experience. Possibly even animals. I'm now developing a deep relationship with our house bunny. Why? Because she is evolving. She used to be, I don't know, you don't say a puppy bunny, right? A young bunny. What do you say? Like a kit? A kit bunny, thank you. And she wasn't very evolved, but as she's in her house and gaining confidence and maturing and aging, she's about 6 months old now, 5 months old now, and she's becoming smart. So she would learn that she likes to be pet in certain ways on her head and on her, especially her jaws, because she's all the time. So if somebody can do her the favor of massaging here, she's like, oh my God, she's great. So then she kind of learned that if she goes and she lies on the carpet and does this, people come and pet her head. But then if you got pet her for like 10 minutes, and she's like, then you stop. Then she learns that she can go and tap on you like this. And she wants you to do it again. So we're all developing deep relations. She's learning how to communicate with us. It's kind of crazy. Like, who would have thought you can have like a whole thing with a bunny, right? So you can. Interesting. So possibly not only animals not just humans, for certainly not just Jews or just Christians or just whatever, Buddhists, right, can feel that, that life is a journey from abundance to lack, from security to not secure, et cetera, right? It could be like something that is more than just people. Every living human and animal creature that's alive can feel, he didn't pet me. Right, so that's a very kind of like bunny thing to do. And then yes, he's right. So it's a very basic kind of journey that we go through, all of us, people and kits alike, right? So here we are. Finally, what time is it? It's 7:50 and we're ready to start the text. Wonderful. And then soon we have to go home. But that's okay, because we're going to be here next week as well. I don't know about you guys, but the rest of us. But Zoom, we have Zoom too, so you can. Right. Parasha of Jacob departed from Beersheba and went to Haran. That is our verse, remember? Genesis 28, verse 10. Okay. And then the people who wrote this paragraph in the Zohar becomes very dramatic. They say, mortals! That's us. That's me. I'm one of the mortals. So is the bunny, right? Celestial beloved. What's that? Elite. What's that? How do you even pronounce this word? Potente. What does that mean? Royalties, right? Like a distinguished guest. It's like, ladies and gentlemen. It's almost like they're saying, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, right? Draw near and listen. Ooh, I want to listen to that. Right? It's kind of like a declaration. Somebody comes to us with kind of like, they're coming to us like an actor, right, on stage. and saying, come on, listen to, like all of you, especially if you are or wish to be a beloved of the, by the heavens. If you want to be an honorary, like if you want to be in the in club, in other words, if you want to know the secret, draw near and listen. Who among you are wise? Please raise your hand if you're wise, right? You're all wise. Yeah, that we want to be, right? Who among you are wise? Masters of eyes of discernment. So we need to be perceptive in order to understand what they want to say, right? If you want to understand what I'm saying, you have to listen well, but not just with your physical ears and with your physical eyes. Like kind of listen well. Listen well. Ye who are wise, listen well. Let him, sorry, it's a very patriarchal society, but we can say him and her, them, let them come and learn. Okay, what are we learning? When the white head lifts up 3 letters and engraves them in chiseled gravings. Aleph, Yud, Nun, final Nun, Ayin. Nothing is hewn. Why are you laughing? What's funny? Explain. Why are you laughing?
It's about the word I am.
Mm-hmm.
Means nothing.
Yeah.
Yes, nothing is human.
Yeah. Right? Nothing is made, yet something is made. What is made? Nothing. What is the origin of nothing? Where did it all come from? Well, here in the sentence. What is the source? Before there were letters, what was there?
The white head.
A white head. So what's a white head? Except for, like, here's an example of almost a white head. Right? Right?
Thinking maybe the scribe is wearing a white turban.
So possibly we're talking about an actual text that is, maybe it's like in Japan when they're like doing like writing on a. So something is, a word is being written. This is you have to read this kind of like poetry. This is like it's just one sentence, but there is a white head. And out of the white head, something is being created or written, engraved. It's chiseled, right? It's written. It's like calligraphy. It's like chisel and hammer. It's like, but it's, so the white head could be what?
A wave.
A wave. Interesting. Why a wave?
Because they like white on top.
Or like foam on top of,
Yeah.
like something very, which is like there for a moment and then isn't there, right? It's like kind of very not non-tangible, not concrete, right? Very dynamic, very fluid.
And it goes back to nothing.
So yeah, so it's like almost like quantum physics in a way, right? It's like love is here today and gone tomorrow, like, right? Like here and not there, like kind of like flickering, right? What else can we say about this white head?
It looks like a hard picture of white yarmulke.
Like a big head. So you're seeing a turban or a yarmulke. That's interesting.
White to
Cloud, like from the sky.
What? It could be like a cloud,
From the sky.
something from the sky. What else? Light.
A moon.
Could be like a full moon, right? Like a moon face, or it could be something. What did you say?
I said light.
You said light. By the way, the original Aramaic can be translated as white, but also like bright, I think.
The sun.
The sun, right? Or I'll give you another suggestion, which does not say that all that you're saying is beautiful. Can it be a blank consciousness?
Clean slate.
Clean slate, as we say in Latin, tabula rasa, right? Something that, or if we're talking about scribes, can it be a white page in which nothing has been written yet? Right? So I would say all of the above that you were saying, that I added and that you're adding, and right? It's basically, yeah. Well, we don't want to, yeah. So Right. So basically, last semester I shared with you this midrash. This rabbinic midrash that the Torah is black fire written over white fire. Anyone remember that? Is that you look at the text, you see black letters, but really mystically, we should think about it as kind of like yin and yang in a sense, or right. So or an Escher thing. So basically, you see that the letters are like black fire, and what's around them is white fire, and we understand that meaning is also derived by silence. Right? Music become music when it's echoed with silence. Right? So in order to differentiate between syllables and vowels, right, we need the whites, and the white space they teach us, the rabbis, is no less important than the actual semantics and context. And here we're writing very slowly. And it is funny in a sense because it's what is created is literally means nothing. Because even nothing is a concept. It's not nothing. Even the word nothing is something. Right? What can be more nothing than nothing? Says the mystic / poet / author of this mysterious text. Right? A white light, a clean slate.
Think what's not written, which is something, right? When iron is written, you hew nothing, but it's all that white space, which is something.
Right. So this white space is also something. It's this now. I can talk for hours. I'm caught in language. I'm caught in the realm of thought. Anything that I'll say here will count against me in the court of law. Right? I can't describe nothing because nothing is something and that something is nothing. Right? So what I can do is follow this text, which is sending us where? I believe inwards to our own psyche. And it's basically telling us observe. Because every word and every idea and every feeling and every something that comes up to the self as something that is real, but real, is basically coming from, they say, nothing. Right? And look how nuanced they are. It's like somebody was sitting for like not 5 minutes, for 5 hours, 5 days, 5 months, 5 years, 50 years, meditating upon nothing. And then they say, oh, we're going to write a text about it to help other people do the same. Right? This is someone from 900 years ago telling us, hey, I'm meditating about nothing because each letter, I'm not even saying ayin. I'm drawing the aleph, and I'm drawing the yud, and I'm drawing the nun, and I'm meditating on each letter that produces nothing, that goes into the white light and then comes up. Now think about every word that we ever say, every thought that we ever have, every emotion that we ever experience, every desire or will that we ever feel or express. Where is it coming from? And where does it go to? Okay? Because you could put any word there, not just ayin. This is like the first thing, but then what follows? Because ayin is also ani. Remember? Is the self. The self comes from nothing, goes into nothing. So shall we read a little more? Oh, do you have any comments or questions on Zoom? Sorry, I want to make sure that we didn't, because there's no rush. When you're doing Kabbalah, there's no rush. Like we'll be here next week. We'll keep reading. Don't worry. It's actually endless, and all the pages teach the same thing. Really, honestly, it's like there's nothing to learn, and there's everything to learn.
There's nothing, and then there's infinity.
Exactly. It's like all the pages start somewhere in some verse or in some idea or in some picture or in some word game or poetry, and it's all supposed to lead us where? To the here and now, to awakening, to meditation, to this moment. Take a deep breath. There's really nothing more to it. You don't have to come here ever again. Neither do I. No, really, seriously. Then it's also kind of good because it's a study that's also a spiritual practice. It's supposed to remind us, give us perspective, direct us towards practicing it. Right? If people maybe in the Middle East experience more nothingness and be less attached to identity, to land, maybe there'll be less violence. If people in this country were less, oh, this is my, and this is, I have to have more, and maybe you see this can yield to, this is actual very practical stuff. It's not just theoretical, right? If we're able to be less attached to the ani, and remember that there's a lot of ayin in between the ani, maybe we'll be arguing less. And I don't know what, you see what I mean? There's repercussions to practicing these kind of teachings. Hopefully positive ones. Yeah. So people on Zoom, are you still there? Complete silence. No, where we're sharing with them.
Yes, yes.
You want, and anybody in the Zoom Zoomland wants to emerge out of nothingness and say, Ani, I want to say something. Ani po. People on Zoom are known to be very shy. Or they just turn on the camera and went to have dinner, which is a clever thing.
Show your face.
Anyone wants to ask or comment before we go on?
We are still here. We're listening.
You're listening. That's good. That's good. That's good. A lot of people on Zoom tonight. Anyone? All right. So if not, we'll just try to continue a little bit more. Right. So let's share the screen again. Let's try to share the screen again. It's not so easy nowadays anymore, like it used to be. Yeah, window, this one. No, not this one. This one, actually, in fact. All right, so let's do a little bit more of the text. So now what they're going to do is they're going to teach us something about each letter. Each letter becomes a whole level of nothingness. You know how they say that Inuits, you know who Inuits are? Inuits. Well, yes, you're not allowed to say that word anymore, but yes. Yes, Inuits.
Can't say Eskimos.
Yeah, so Inuits, it's fine. It's fine, you can, but I heard that that's the correct word to use. Inuits have how many words for snow? 50. Right, something like 50 or 100, because since I moved to Rochester, I'm starting to learn that there's this puffy snow and icy snow, and in fact there's black ice, which is like snow that you don't see and you can trip and fall on it, and there's all these. Almost happened to me today in a parking lot. Right, so there's when you live in Israel, like I used to, there's snow. I know it's white, it falls from the sky, but when you live here, like there's this kind of snow, the snow that falls all day, the puffy one, the hard one, the slushy one, the ugly one, the one that's stuck to your boots, the one that, in each culture, if you know something, if you're close to, you'll know. So basically, in Kabbalah now, they tell us you think that nothing is just one kind of nothing. There's many kinds of nothing. 50 ways to describe nothingness. Many ways, because we've meditated nothingness so much. We want to tell you that between the nothingness and then everythingness, between Ein and Ani, between me that I exist and the white light, it's actually nuanced. Also known as a ladder. You see? Also known as a ladder. So it's not just an on-off switch. I am not. Ein ani. There's actually a ladder that helps us observe and get closer and kind of like travel between. There's like a spectrum of nothingness. See? So each letter now is going to symbolize another level in this nothingness. All right? Between the complete nothingness and everythingness, there's a whole. You thought it was black and white. No, it's actually colorful. All right? There's a whole rainbow of like 35% nothingness, 76% nothingness. See? It's like, all right. So Aleph, the first letter, maybe that's as far as we'll get today or whatever. I don't know. Aleph, that letter, right? Aleph. Aleph is what? Is in fact the supreme head, concealed of all concealed. Aleph being the first letter of the alphabet, being what? Why are you doing this?
Oh, because I'm men and zappy.
Oh, and you begin with Aleph. Yay! Right? By the way, in Arabic, Alif, it's the same letter. It's the first letter, and it's also very long. It's like also like a ladder, like the English I, in fact, right? It's like kind of like that. And so the first letter represents, in fact, the supreme head, that white head. So why? Because Aleph A is silent, right? I know. It's also the first letter, so there's no duality. It's one, right? So there's oneness. There's no division in Aleph. It's simple. It's one, like we're doing Echa, right? It's a simple syllable. There's no division in Aleph. There's no sound other than a very simple, very like kind of, yeah, exactly. It's actually a little bit like the Hindu Om or the Buddhist Om, right? They also say Om. It's the same idea. Maybe it's interrelated culturally. Who knows? So in Kabbalah, Aleph represents the highest level that we actually cannot directly describe or perceive, or because the moment we start to talk about it, it's already not that. So that would be Aleph. All right? Aleph would represent the white page, or the tabula rasa, or the clean slate, the concealed of all concealed. Yud, on the other hand, ascendant in will. And before I continue, why? Because Yud, the letter Yud, the letter Yud is tiny. It's this one in the middle. It actually, so to the Kabbalists, the letter Yud symbolizes a dot, a point. Okay, it's the smallest letter of the alphabet. It's very, very tiny. So it would if Aleph symbolizes the white page, or the white slate, or the clean consciousness, Yud would represent, imagine that now we're the scribe and we finally are ready to write something after like 10 years of meditation, right? And we're going to dip our feather in the ink, and we're going to start anything that we're ever going to write is going to start with what? Point of touch, with Yud, with a point, right? So imagine that similarly, as the train goes by, symbolizing something, I don't know what. Imagine that every thought that we ever have also starts with, is it a chemical thing? Like, why would I have a thought at a certain age? Right? Like why would I think of anything? Is it triggered by, I don't know, my hunger situation, my thirst, why would I think about something at all, right? Something triggers it. And they call it actually will. Why? Why is it will? The first, right behind, underneath every thought or every sense or everything, there is a very, very, I want something. There's a desire. It's the beginning, right? What's that? There's a will. There's right? So what are the most kind of primordial, basic needs and desires of humans that kind of create many other ones? What's that? Warmth. What else? Food. What else? What's that? I want to breathe. I want to live. Right? Beyond a lot of people make a lot of money because people want to live, right? Who are they? Among which are insurance, doctors, rabbis, right? Like different people make a lot. Almost all of us, by the way, make someone or another, right? What's that? What'd you say? Right. So in other words, a lot of, if you kind of in the butt of it, before you make a word and a sentence and a book and a encyclopedia, right? You know, like make it there's a tabula rasa, there's nothing, and then there's a will to live. Then the soul wants to be born, then it's born. Everything else, and then it doesn't want to die. And then it also wants to feel secure, warm, loved, understood, appreciated. Have I missed something?
Rich.
What's that? Rich, right? But rich would be like, I agree with you that a lot of it, especially in our culture, has to do with money, right? But maybe you meant rich, like culturally rich, emotionally rich, right? But a lot of the I want money because I want to have like a number of other things, right? And then so let's go deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper, right? So the Kabbalists here are like deconstructing everything that we are and everything that we think that we're such sophisticated animals. When in the end it comes back to my bunny on the carpet. It goes because she wants to be pet right here, right here. Oh, it feels so good. That enormous entity that is, she doesn't, I don't know if you know that I wonder how she knows that my leg is connected to like, how does she identify me? Why does she think? I see that she sniffs the leg, so she identifies the smell. Rabbits also don't see exactly as we do. They see everything except what's in front of them. They see because they're people. Animals hunt them, so they have to see everything, but what's in front of their nose. But somehow then she identified that my leg is connected to that creature that's supposed to pet her gums or her chin, whatever, right? And so that's very, very simple kind of. If anyone ever had children, right? Babies, many of us have, right? Grandchildren, great grandchildren, whatever, like that baby that it wants, right? So we are just sophisticated that, right? So look how nuanced is the text, is the study. Aleph representing nothing at all, and Yud is like the big bang of the soul, but it happens every moment when we want to live, and then as a result of that, a lot of other things come. Right? We want to live, and then we want to eat, we want to drink, we want to rest, we want a house, so we want a mortgage, so we want to, like, a lot of things come out of that very, right? Okay, so seeing that the time is 8:13, and we have 2 more minutes. I'm not going to attempt to get into noon, and actually Yud is much more elaborate than just that, but they're going to go into a whole explanation, longer than we have time now. What is the Yud? And then we're going to get to the Nun. And then we'll see how it all comes together. All right? Any last thoughts, complaints, suggestions for improvement? Yeah, Josh.
So from the quote from the Zohar, it struck me they're talking about concealment of all concealed. To talk about the whole essentially Bible about Revelation.
Interesting. Can you explain your comment? Can you elaborate a little bit?
Yeah, so the Aleph is about concealed of all concealed.
Mm-hmm.
The Torah portion isn't about concealment. This is the revelation of.
Yeah, great comment.
Great thoughts to.
The answer is that the latter goes both ways. Actually, we had. If you read the story, there were angels coming up and down. In other words, the ladder comes from nothing to I-ness, from nothingness to yes to existence, but it also goes from existence to nothingness. And revelation, right, is in a mysterious Kabbalistic kind of way, what we want to be revealed is nothingness, because everything that is the created. So it's kind of like a paradoxical kind of thing, right? Kind of like infinite. So Jacob's ladder goes both ways, and revelation and concealment are kind of like intertwined, are in 2 ways to talk about the same thing in a way. But it is very interesting, right? Why are they talking about that concealed when what they want is something to be revealed? Yeah. So. Mm-hmm. Thank you, Josh. Anyone else, whether on Zoom or in the room? Or are you thinking of your dinner plans already? Anyone on Zoom? People on Zoom were very, very patient and wonderful and listening, and we love you and thank you. All right. So very good. So we've definitely made some progress this week. We they don't see us because they didn't stop sharing. All they see is the screen. So people on Zoom, everybody good?
Yes, thank you.
So
thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you for joining us, whether on the infinite, land of Zoom or here in this room. God willing, we shall reconvene next week at 7 to keep revealing and concealing the riddle of Ein Ani. All right. Meanwhile, your homework is to kind of sometimes you like to breathe and to kind of like imagine that blanket can like kind of like imagine ourselves becoming this white light, and especially when we get worked up about something, something becomes really important. Oh, this is my opinion, and I'm gonna whatever, right? That's a good moment to take a breath and kind of like, oh, I'm very important, and my opinion is very important, but kind of take a deep breath here, right? We're somewhere between the Aleph and the Yud, right, on our way to infinity and beyond. All right. Thank you for coming. Thank you for bringing guests from California. I hope you return to your home safe and sound.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely.
Good night.
Good night.
Is it just a coincidence that your last name is Zohar?